Hey, everybody, welcome to Leadership Pathway. My name is Dave Miller. At Leadership Pathway, we are all about helping churches find and support, develop, and sometimes hang on to the next generation of leaders. And along the way, we make friends with people who not all of our paths are straight through Bible college, come out as a 22-year-old, get an MDiv, and land a youth pastor job, right? Some of us kind of do this. And I think God is at work in churches that we are around, and he's calling insurance salesmen, and he's calling teachers, and he's calling business leaders, and he's calling stay-at-home moms, and sometimes he calls salon owners and hairstylists to put down the scissors and pick up a Bible and follow and get into ministry. And so that's why I'm excited about this conversation today. Kristal Locke, welcome.
Good to be here.
Introduce yourself. Where are you? What are you currently doing? Give us who is Kristal? Let's start there.
Well, I live in Tacoma, Washington, but I am serving at a church in Sumner, Washington, which is about 30 minutes away.
Okay.
I am a leadership development director, which most people are like, what does that even mean?
Okay.
Especially in the church world. But I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I develop leaders in the church. So I'm co-vocational. I just sold my salon last year, so I'm still doing some hair, but at the church half the time too. So and started seminary. There's all that. So
Yeah, I think when I met you, I like talking to friends. I like talking to people I know. And if you know the Millers, we lived in Tacoma 4 years chasing our grandkids, and that's when we met. And yeah, when I met you, you were enrolling or you were enrolled in school already, right?
I was enrolled in my undergrad. Yeah.
Undergrad.
hmm
And now you're in seminary.
hmm
And where are you? Tell us about seminary. Where are you in seminary?
I am just now completing my first semester at North Park Seminary. So I am in a cohort that's mostly online, but I travel a couple times a year to Chicago, Omaha, kind of all over.
Fantastic. North Park. Okay, take us back. Who was Kristal? I always love hearing people's origin stories.
Mhm.
18 to 25, that's where most of our work is embedded. We have more and more second career kind of people doing this, but who was Kristal 18 to 25?
Yeah, at 18, I was coming out of some reckless teen years, but I decided to do hair. And I remember a guidance counselor pulling me out of class and going like, "Hey, you haven't taken the SATs, you haven't applied to any colleges." I'm like, "I know, I'm gonna do hair." And she was very concerned, but I'm like, "But that's what I want to do." And so anyway, I honestly just didn't really feel like, traditional college route was in the cards for me. Nobody in my family had gone to college. So yeah, that's what I did. And I happened to meet this guy who, I tagged along with him to church. And that was when I was kind of slowly getting to know the Lord. But it took a couple of years. So I would say
So
right
you
before
were
my
not
20,
you were not raised in a religious home?
nope,
Not
nope.
raised in a religious home.
Yeah,
Okay.
my mom went back to church when I was in high school. But again, I just kind of didn't want anything to do with it at that point. So it just took a boy.
Was this up in the Tacoma area? Seattle, Tacoma area?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you meet the guy, 18, you start what? You have to go to school to cut hair? Is that how that works?
Yep. Yep. Schooling takes about a year and a half, depending on the
Okay.
program. And then I did opt into an advanced training program
Uh-huh.
where I got to do some internship. And very glad I did. Coming fresh out of high school, I had some life learning to do.
So the first time in my world, in your world now, the first time you teach a lesson or the first time you sit across the table from somebody, you're employed at a church or you're the intern, that's one thing. The first time you have scissors in your hands, we think about teaching hospitals, but the first time you're going to cut someone's hair,
Mhm.
like you've got all the theory. How many hours of theory do you have before you're standing there over a real person with the scissors or whatever it is? How many hours are you in of training?
Hmm. I don't know if I could tell you the hours, but it's about one quarter of cutting hair on mannequins before you're cutting hair at a cosmetology school on
Okay.
paying clients.
Paying
So
clients. They're
a
paying a little less.
lot less.
They're kind of in this with you,
Mhm.
so
Yep.
to speak.
Yep.
I'm assuming you
Yep.
start on, bad haircuts like mine that are easy before you go up to long hair and all of the things, or do you just jump right into styling and what I don't even know the words to use, blowing it out and all the things that cost a lot of money that I
Yeah,
know.
it's funny. They give you actually these long-haired mannequins, and the first one was actually a male mannequin. It was very creepy. And you start off cutting like a mullet essentially, and then you kind of learn haircuts shorter and shorter to
Okay.
utilize the mannequins. And then
Okay.
when you go out on the floor for the first time, you do have your instructor kind of like directly behind you,
Okay.
walking you through. The haircut takes forever, but you're closely monitored.
How do they find these people?
I think what appeals to people is the cost.
Yeah,
Honestly,
right.
it's a lot of the older generation. I remember doing a
Yeah.
lot of perms
Okay.
during that season, which I
Okay.
haven't done one since.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, and just friends and family. I'm amazed looking back the people who are willing to be my guinea pigs.
Okay, so you meet the boy, you come to Jesus.
Hmm.
You're 20,
Ish.
20,
Yep.
21,
Yep.
19, 20.
Yep.
When do you get your first haircutting job?
Right about that time.
Okay.
Yeah. Advanced training wasn't long. It was probably like a 2 or so year process total. But yeah, the advanced training, there was also an opportunity to do, a couple month internship at some of our flagship locations.
Okay.
And again, really glad I did that because I got to be in the salons with these highly paid artists. And yeah, just seeing how it's done, more caught than taught kind of thing.
Interesting. So at what point, I remember walking down Proctor Street in Tacoma and I said something about over there at that shop and someone says, "Yeah, that's Kristal's shop." At what point did you become an owner?
Yeah, I worked for a salon for about 7 years and then
Okay.
I freelanced for a couple years, so leasing a station on my own.
Okay.
So yeah, it took about 10 years for me to work up the courage to open my own salon.
Okay.
It's funny, when I was in that initial 7 years, I was doing some salon education for this big corporate salon I worked at,
Okay.
oversaw about 50 stylists, but I'm at this thing. And when I left, it was kind of that first whisper of like, you're going to be teaching the word one day, not,
Oh,
you know, hair related stuff. And I'm
yeah.
like, okay, whatever. And so we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But so about 10 years, yep, opened a salon with a dear friend of mine. I was pregnant with my second child. It was crazy.
That's crazy. What led you to open? What led you to take that leap? Was it money? Was it you wanted to own your schedule? You just had a desire to lead something? What was it?
I don't think it was the money. I think, I just wanted to create a space that I wanted to work in. And
Okay.
so, when I had left the corporate salon and was freelancing for a couple of years, I got a taste of being out on my own, making my own schedule, yada yada. But there were still limitations to, um, products I could sell, those type of things. So, yeah, and me and a friend were just talking, and she had kind of dreamed of doing it as well. And it's like, why don't we do this together? And yeah, we scored a pretty sweet location.
You're 28 years old or something at that point,
Let's see,
27,
I
29?
was 31-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you started 20, you were cutting for 10 years.
Mhm.
So along that 10-year run, 21 to 31, you're in a church somewhere,
Mhm.
attending,
Mhm.
showing up, doing stuff. What
Yep.
what was your church what was going on in that way during those times? Because at some point you're leaving this training
Mhm.
and you hear you're going to be teaching the word.
Mhm.
I'm curious where did that come from? I mean, it's the spirit of God, but like, what's the impetus for that? Maybe.
Yeah, I came to faith in a very large non-denominational church, husband-wife pastor team.
Mhm.
So I got a lot of exposure to female leadership. But to be honest with you, I never thought that was in the cards for me because I wasn't married to a pastor.
Right.
So again, it was easy to dismiss that whisper because that's all I had seen and all I had known.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but I am grateful for still witnessing that leadership at that
Yeah.
time.
Were you getting more and more involved, or we might say sucked into doing stuff in your church world in that time?
Yeah, I got sucked in pretty quickly. I don't
Yeah.
know what it was.
Yeah.
I helped style the women's pastor's hair for events, and I think they were just looking for young leaders, and so they
Yeah.
swooped me right in. I remember leading a women's Bible study table, and I barely knew how to navigate the Bible, but
Yeah.
it was just, facilitating.
Yeah.
So I got by, but it was kind of comical looking back.
I'm curious, before you heard the whisper walking out of the training, do you remember if somebody had said, like, I remember the moment when the youth pastor had me by the shoulders saying, I see ministry in you. Did you have a moment like that? Was anyone challenging you to step into something? Can you recall a moment like that?
Not at that point. I think
Okay.
I was more people were speaking into me, business ownership.
Okay.
That was highly valued in that environment.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So you're walking out of the training.
Mhm.
You're going to teach the word someday. Then we go to commercial in the movie, and then we come back after seeing some commercials. And what's the next big, from that moment to what's the next big moment that takes you towards ministry, do you think?
Well, unfortunately, there was some moral failures that happened in that church, and so we
Okay.
needed to move on. And so then we
Sure.
were part of a plant, um,
Okay.
and then we were there for a couple years, had our third kid, and another moral failing happened, and I honestly
Wow.
was kind of like done with
Yeah.
church.
Yeah.
Um, But then another plant came about
Yeah.
where we met each other, and I remember saying to our pastor, like, this is my last straw.
It's just,
Like I've been
you've
through
had
two.
two
Mhm.
strikes hanging out with pastors.
Yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, I was really thankful to get to kind of heal and work through that. I'm glad I kept going.
Yeah.
But it was really hard that first year or so. And then COVID hit.
Oh.
But in the midst of all that, there was this pastoral pathway that our pastor had presented, and somebody invited me into that. So that was really the first time I felt invited into exploring vocational ministry, being encouraged to kind of move in that direction.
Um, let's talk about women in ministry.
Mm.
Let's dip out of the story.
Mhm.
We click over to let's talk about women in ministry.
Yeah.
Most of where we hang out for the last 20 years. I mean, people knock churches for being all alike, but so's Chipotle. So are coffee shops. So are salon. It's a lot of salons. You want just
Yep.
what's modern. If you were opening one today, you could probably go pick the color palette, and it feels sort of like a great coffee shop or craft. They all we're kind of homogeneous. Is that the word? Something.
Yep.
We're not homo, but you know what I'm saying. We're similar people. We're similar. Churches all look the same. One thing that's very similar. Pastors say to me, either we're we're egalitarian, or they don't want to say we're complementarian usually. Usually.
Mhm.
Now, people are watching us and their church is definitely complementarian. I'm not here to convince anyone of anything. But most pastors will say we're not really. I mean, we have women in ministry here. We're lightly compliment like women preach here on occasion.
Mhm.
I'll hear this. I hear this a lot. And what they mean is on Mother's Day.
Mhm.
What they mean is the last Sunday of December, the women preacher.
Mhm.
What's been your experience? Or a bunch of resumes come in, some sort of opportunity, and there's a woman and there's three, and guess who gets the opportunity?
Mhm.
My
Mhm.
wife has been on a church staff that claimed to be egalitarian, but she'd come home laughing. She's laughing about it, right? She's like, these guys, it's like at lunchtime at the retreat, they all looked at me like, and I said, like, am I supposed to make you a sandwich or something? Like, I don't understand what's going on here right
Mhm.
now. What's been your experience being a woman, being in ministry? Because we're all around theologically somewhat conservative, even though might say we think we're progressive.
Mhm.
So that's the longest. context I can get into this question to ask you, like, what's been your experience?
Yeah, so the first two churches I was a part of, it was a husband-wife team.
Yeah,
So again, I've definitely seen women
yeah,
in lead pastor roles, but that in itself is kind of a unique
it
thing. So
is.
it would appear to be egalitarian again in a non-denominational church and then Assemblies of God.
Yeah,
Um, there are still limitations. Again, if you are not married to that pastor,
right.
good luck,
Yeah, yeah,
being in those type of roles.
yeah,
Now, again, I've seen women in executive pastor roles and preaching and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
I've had good, healthy exposure. It actually wasn't until the church we met at that I had even learned the terms egalitarian and
right.
complementarian.
Yeah,
Right at the time, I had actually enrolled my children in a Reformed Presbyterian school, having no idea, that all
yeah,
that entailed.
right.
And they're still there,
Right.
but it's come with great challenges. And the more I lean into ministry, the more pushback I get.
Yeah,
And it can be very discouraging at times
yeah.
'cause I genuinely believe I'm doing what God is calling me to do. And I've done a fair amount of reading and research to come to that conclusion. It's
Hmm.
not just like, you
Yeah,
know, because I feel like it,
yeah,
but I really wrestled with that because I thought, okay, am I missing something here?
right.
I was open to other perspectives and I understand to agree how people come to those perspectives, but
Hmm.
I just don't. So
Right.
I'm just gonna do my thing, but it has been a challenge. I mean, I
Yeah.
was invited to um, apply for a role about a year ago that wasn't even posted. It was just me and one other gal. Well,
Hmm.
guess what? She was married to someone on staff, and guess who got the role?
Right. Right.
It's like, why did I even bother?
Right.
It's just maddening,
Yeah.
and I'm not to say that she wasn't qualified or anything like that. It's just like, okay,
Yeah.
this is going to be a challenge for me. Um,
It
but
feels like we've gone backwards.
mhm,
Um, Depends on where you're embedded in the kingdom too, right?
mhm,
And it is the kingdom of God. There's like we're all sort of similar, and then you get down into it, and we're really not. But then it if you grew up in a particular place, you have a perspective,
mhm,
and it's geographic, it's economic, it's theological. It's like the mix of all of that kind of becomes a flavor, and then you get out and you experience other things. But for 20 years running around the country and
mhm,
working with all kind, it feels like we've gone a little backwards on this
mhm.
topic. And
Yeah, it's
and and people my age, women who've been preaching, leading for 25 years, they're just like, I feel like we've gone backwards. Does it feel, would you agree? Would you like, yeah, I haven't experienced that. What's your take on that?
Well, I think because I've only been on the scene about that long, it's hard to say, but I mean, it was just wild coming into the church. Like I never felt limited by my gender
Yeah.
ever in
Yeah.
life. I was,
Mm,
captain of the water polo team. I managed the
right.
guys team. I played
Right.
with the guys. Like it was just never an issue. And then you come into the church and it's like there are limitations
Yeah.
just because of that. Not because of your education or your calling or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what?
What's going on?
So and again, I was pretty far into my walk before I
Yeah.
even realized that.
Yeah. Okay. Back to your story. You're running a you're running a salon, you own a salon, you're running it, and at some point this flips, you've gone through the school thing,
Mhm,
undergrad
mhm,
school, right?
mhm,
And now you're out and it flips towards what am I going to do?
mhm.
Talk about, here's the thing, that's all of that context for 20 minutes brings us up to the thing that I continue to say to people. There are people sitting out there who have management experience, leadership experience, ownership experience. The Spirit of God is like, you're going to be teaching the word someday. They're
Mhm.
stirred up, they
Mhm.
raise their hand. Tell us about this process that you went through. How did this work?
Yeah, as I was approaching graduation, I was also at this crossroads with re-signing my salon lease, and part of me really wanted to hang on to it. I'm like, can I just own it from afar? You could have somebody manage it, whatever, right? But the more I kind of wrestled with it and talked with my former business partner, we were actually both feeling called in different directions. And it was like, I just don't think this is fair to my business or myself to continue owning this just for the sake of owning it. So yeah, I had to make that decision to let it go without anything lined up. That was the wild part. I knew I wanted to continue on, go to seminary, get my master's, but I didn't know where. I could have stayed, at the school I was at. We had some internship residency opportunities, at our church, which I got to partake in. Um, so yeah, it was just kind of continuing to take one step at a time in that direction, even though it was like super uncertain. And there were
Yeah.
definitely doors that closed on me that
Yeah.
I was surprised about.
Yeah. Um, God knew your address.
Hmm.
I say this all, I mean, thousands of interviews at this point and people's stories and how I was in one last week. He did not get the job that he thought he was devastated. He
Hmm.
was gutted.
Hmm.
First words up, maybe I'm not called to do this. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let me tell you my story. I'm 25. I get the call and I'm like, there are times we're moving towards something and there's times we're leaving stuff. And I see that with candidates and even in my own life. And I was done where I was, just trying to show up and
Hmm.
gut through week to week. I've interviewed two or three times. I don't get the job.
Hmm.
Throw the phone down. I am gutted, crushed.
Hmm.
6 months later, I'm in the dream job of my life, life altering friends that I still run with today.
Hmm.
Everything changed.
Hmm.
Had I had, with hindsight only, it's the nice thing about getting old. With hindsight, it starts making sense, right? It's like, I'm so glad that didn't happen. I'm so glad that didn't happen. I'm telling this he's a 28-year-old man who's married, wondering what's next, And he's like, they didn't want me. I'm like, I'm sorry, man. They're just didn't sense that it was right and whatever and blah 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 like employers do.
Hmm.
Maybe I'm not called. I'm like, no. Doors are going to open. Doors are going to close.
Hmm.
You're going to be shocked. You're going to be disappointed. This
Hmm.
journey is just like,
Hmm.
but Crystal, we've read the word, right? This starts way back, way before Jesus and way before Paul started churches, way back in the Old Testament. Has anyone's journey ever been very few, very
Hmm.
few?
Hmm.
How did you land in the role that you're in? How did this happen? You were scrolling for jobs, a friend called. What was it?
Well, I'd actually started a grad program with our former church, and there was a residency opportunity, but not within our church. I was being overseen by a pastor in the area, and it was actually part of a different denomination. And through that process, that pastor connected me with my current pastor because they had lost their executive during COVID, not for any bad reason. They just had moved on and had been kind of struggling ever since, like so many churches did. And he said, I think this would be a really good fit for you, as much as he wanted to keep me around, keep me in Tacoma, which I thought was really kind of him. He wasn't trying to just keep me to himself. He was like, this is what's best for you. And I was like, okay. And I never in a million years would have thought I'd be called to Sumner, Washington, doing what I'm doing. But, I'm getting to utilize my leadership degree. I'm part of a denomination who has a female president, which is amazing. So it just feels like a really good fit for me because it's still Orthodox, still some would consider it, conservative theology, but women can do their thing, which
Yeah,
is,
love it.
yeah.
What was your favorite part of being a hair salon owner, a hairstylist salon owner? When you think back, I know you haven't been on it that long,
Mhm.
ownership, but when you think back, what'd you love?
I just loved creating the culture. It's like everything from the logo to, what are we about? Who do we serve? What's this team going to be like? And in our industry, it can be very petty, very worldly. And I just don't do drama.
Mm,
Um, I, I think we need to respect all people. And, in the Northwest, we get
mhm.
a lot of variety.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, creating the culture was definitely my favorite part, and it's been so cool to see it kind of live on, especially, I mean, yes, I'm still there, but the new owners have just really taken what we built and ran with it, as far as like supporting the rescue mission and doing these things in our community that were so important to me. And,
Mhm.
it was a huge part of why I decided to sell to them because they wanted to continue on what we built.
Okay. I'm going to surprise you. Next Tuesday, you're going to speak to the luncheon of people at churches who are thinking about the Spirit's whispered to them, you're going to teach the word someday. Or they're someone saying to them, you ought to do this. They're thinking about ministry. And they're in business. They're a stay-at-home mom. They're a salon owner. They're driving a truck. They're working for the family business. They're probably engaged in these churches. They're rock stars at these churches, honestly. And you get up at the luncheon and you're going to tell them, here's two or three things. Here's the positives, here's the pitfalls, here's what you ought to be thinking about. What would you say?
As far as going into ministry,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a huge adjustment. So my husband was actually in ministry in the past, so I went into this very eyes wide open.
Mhm.
I've seen behind the curtain, I know how things work. But still, there's something about being on staff, and I would say just brace yourself. I mean, for me, it came with a much lower paycheck. Um, I'm just baffled by the amount of meetings we have to have to make decisions and do things. Um, yeah, and just the resistance to change. I mean, the church I'm serving at is the oldest, most established church I've ever been at, and I'm like, whoa. So being patient. But yeah, I mean, even with all that said, it's been so rewarding and better than I could have imagined. So be willing to sacrifice some
Mm,
things,
yeah.
and be ready to have a whole lot of patience.
I'm thinking about, how many haircuts have I had in my life, right? About every 3 or 4 weeks, I get one. And it's been a few years. I'm still getting my haircut. What's it like to be a barber? I have no idea. I have no idea. What's it like to own that barber shop? I don't know. I mean, I walk in there. I like these guys. It's cl- and I get my haircut. I give them money and I leave.
Mhm.
I have no idea what it is to be a barber, what it takes to be a barber, what it is. But I think a lot of times when you are around churches, I've had many friends. It's like until sometimes elders. I
Mhm.
mean, like deep in the weeds of these organizations, these local churches, and they become the exec or they become the whatever, fill in the blank. And they walk in, and in about 3 weeks, they're texting me, bro, these people are crazy. Yeah, I mean, I had no idea and they start telling, and it's either long meetings or when you wanted to do a logo for your shop, you just
Mhm.
we've got to get 50 people to like what are we doing? And then just the nonprofit, there's a layer of nonprofit, and then
Mhm.
there's a layer of religion, and then you've got at the Christian formation and the real things of ministry that
Mhm.
go. That's what kind of they're drawn to, I think.
Mhm.
Saul becomes Paul for 2,000 years. People walk in here. You walk in with the boy because the boy went to church, I guess, and your life is forever altered. I want to do that for a living,
Mhm.
which is sort of like, wow, I just love what he did with I want to be a barber. But
Mhm.
that's who we are as people, isn't it? And
Yeah.
then we're shocked when we get on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, as a hairstylist, I mean, the wonderful women next to me, they hear the same stories from me all day long.
Yeah.
People want to know the same things. So
Yes.
you think you have this uh unique conversation. I'm like, nope, I've
Yeah.
had this conversation 8 times today.
Yeah,
And I'm
right.
happy to do it. It just,
Right.
that's the reality of it. It's like, uh-huh.
It's interesting to me. Have you thought about barbers, salons, and church, and probably a bar? How about that? Those those are the three places left, aren't there, in our culture where we still talk to people and we get to engage.
Yeah.
Maybe the 10 years of cutting hair and talking,
Hmm.
you didn't even know what that was preparing you for. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think it very much prepared me for ministry because, ministry is a lot of listening,
A lot of listening.
a lot of listening. Yeah.
People who cut hair who listen and ask great questions.
Hmm.
Like we've all had that, and then we've just had
Hmm.
the other person. It's not
Yeah.
that. I mean, they might be great hairstylists,
Hmm.
but they're not a conversationalist. They're not.
Hmm.
I think people are, counselors and barbers and pastors, bartenders.
Hmm.
Even I mean, I'm in Ubers a lot. I get in, they even let you tell them now, I don't want to talk to you. I want the car cool. I don't want music and I'm not talking to you. I can actually choose and I get in the back seat and ride for an hour sometimes. My life is in this person's hands. I don't talk to them. But when you get in the barber chair, they're going to ask. It's
Hmm.
interesting. You loved creating culture.
Hmm.
When I said, what did you love about that? You didn't say, well, I really love the new products that I don't even know a name. I don't even know. I love those scissors and I love the new style. No, you said I love creating culture, making it a positive place and not do drama.
Yep.
It strikes me that's what that church needs.
Hmm. Right.
Culture carrier, creator,
Yep.
leadership development. Tell me about your job.
Hmm.
What's your job? I know you're on staff at a church. I know there's a job title, but pretend I'm from Mars. What do you do?
Well, I work with our lead pastor to do leadership development for our staff and lay leaders. So we're really asking the question a lot, like the title of your book, Who's the Next You, which is essentially discipleship, right? And so, but it's amazing how much of a culture shift that's been because it's like people are so reliant on staff, leading all the ministries. And, that's limiting.
Yeah,
So we're really trying to shift into going like, your job now is to train up lay leaders, oversee, pour into them.
yeah.
So yeah, that's really fun. I'm also on our teaching team, so I get to preach pretty often, and I oversee our serve ministries, which is like our local and global partnerships, which
Okay.
has actually been probably my favorite part of the role.
Um, well, whoever whispered to you, you're going to be teaching the word someday. I guess you took that to the bank.
Hmm.
You're living it.
Yeah.
Where do you think it's going for
Mm.
you personally? If I hop in a time machine, this is always my question for people. I go out and I find you in 10 years, 5 years, I don't know. And I come back and I'm like, hey, Kristal, I found you. What do you think you're doing?
Well, for the next couple of years, I am going to seminary and
Okay.
I'm going to be part of this church and learn and do as much as I can. I'm not sure beyond that, but I'm super drawn to church planting. And I think being from the Northwest, it's like we need all the churches we can get. So,
Yes.
but I'm also not getting any younger, so it's a little daunting. But who knows, So, but yeah, I think having, started and owned a business, it's not as daunting to me as it might be to some,
Right.
although, church is a different beast, but
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of similarities.
Fascinating. Crystal, it's been fun. It's been
Yes.
fun. Listen, preachers, pastors, leaders, small group leaders, worship leaders, pastors, all of the above. There are crystals. There are crystals. There are crystal locks
Mhm.
sitting in the pews, sitting in the chairs,
Mhm.
and they do amazing things. They've got some awesome things going personally because while she was opening a shop and cutting hair every day of the week and managing the books and doing the logos and she was also having some kids and she's married and she's running a home and she's doing all the things And then they walk into our organizations and we're like, hey, you want to hold the door open? Hey, you want to do what a doorstop would do? Or you want to usher? There's some talent out there. We have to open these things up more than just play in the band, work with the kids, or be an usher. Think about the talents that are at your disposal in these organizations. Think about looking at people and saying, I see ministry in you. I don't know. Are you going to be full time someday? I don't know. But you ought to, North Star, you could do it. You could do it. Walk with us and go with us. And who knows what's going to happen in the meantime. We've got to unearth. Our goal is to help that 19 to 25-year-olds get in, stay in, don't quit, don't get fired. But we're all along the way, there's going to be some 32-year-olds and maybe even some 50-year-olds and some gray-headed 55-year-olds that might need to be on your team as well. And that's the clarion call, I think, for moving forward, the leadership crisis and the leadership development that we need to happen in these organizations. So listen, man, that's why I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to hear that story. I wanted to hear that story. You still carry scissors with you? You got scissors in your purse all the time?
No, no, but again, I still get to do my thing, and
Yes.
my clients are very nervous as when I'm going to quit for good. And I was like, well, I hope to do it all through seminary, so we got some time.
Fantastic. I love it. Thanks for the conversation. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Leadershippathway.org. Check it out. There's all the things are there. You'll find it. You're above average intelligence if you've lasted this long in this video. Thanks for being here.